Hello, sewing and non-sewing friends. This is Peas, and this is the second part of my tweed jacket video. If this is your first time watching one of my videos, thank you. This is where I share the love of sewing, and can I tell you, I love sewing. But I'm sure most people who sew will say the same thing, and hopefully you do too, or you will if you are learning to sew. If this you're returning returning viewer, thank you for supporting my channel. I appreciate your viewership. So this video, I am serging all of the pieces. It may look like I'm going fast, but I did speed this up, and trust me, I am going super slow, especially around this corner right here. And so most times I don't use my serger because the thread was breaking on me or something was going wrong and going afoul. And I realized that, you know what? I have not changed my needle in a while. And when I changed the needle, I tell you, this thing started serging like it was going through butter. So I'm taking my time, even though there was times where I was like, you know, maybe I can get away with not serging this edge or not serging this piece. But I said, you know what? I am sewing in segments. And so sewing in segments allows me the mental ability and the physical stamina to take my time and to serge all the pieces. And when you're sewing a jacket is what, maybe 14, 16 pieces. That is a lot of serging. And so usually I would either, I would use some binding and I would do a Hong Kong finish, or I would do enclosed seams sometimes, because I would always try to get out of using my serger. And I really had to sit down and ask myself, why do I dislike serging so much? Like, I really don't like it. If I had someone ask me a question and said, what part of sewing do I dislike? I would have to put serging in one of those. Not finishing edges, because I do like to finish edges. I think doing a tiny hem, I think doing a Hong Kong finish are probably two of my favorite finishing techniques. But serging, there's something about it that I just do not like. But I am doing it here, taking my time, y'all, taking my time. And as I'm going through this, taking the pieces through the serger, I'm going slow because I am barely allowing the fabric to touch that cutting knife. So I lift up the piece every couple inches just to make sure that the lining is out of the way, because the last thing you want to do, especially when you do not have more lining on hand in case of a mistake, the last thing you want to do is to serge your lining to your fabric. Like, that's the worst thing that can happen right now. Second to cutting a hole in your fabric. I think I've done that a couple times, but nothing too serious. I've done it on knit, and I just had to put a patch in that, because I'm like, I've come too far. I've gone too far to just scrap this whole piece, and it was just a little tiny hole, and I was able to do some mending by hand. So even the little short end pieces over here like that, send them through, checking, making sure that all the edges are done. And if you look at that little scrap that's right in front of my machine, I have probably a couple more pieces to go, and that just shows you the little bit that has been cut off. So again, I'm really aiming to cut that black. So that black that you see is the interfacing. That's kind of what I am cutting off in the process of serging, and making sure that my thread tacks are not going to get caught up in a serged edge. So you can, if you see the thread spools on my machine, I have 3 red and 1 white. Is because I rarely have used my red before, because I don't make a lot of things in red, but I do have a lot in white, and for some reason I don't have 4 spools of red. I just had the 3. So I said, oh, the fabric is red and white, I can use red and white thread in my serger, and let me tell you, it looks pretty nifty. Probably you can't see it on the video, but up close and personal, the red and white serging thread just really makes this, is going to make the inside look nice, even though it's not going to be seen because of the lining. But still, to see it, for me to see it, I was like, oh, this looks super, super nice. And this is, I have not used my thread, my serging machine a lot. So that's why it looks like, if you look at like the red, again, I don't make a lot of things in red, but again, I also don't serge a lot. But this is my first time. So I was sewing, you see to the, at the top of the screen, I'm pulling the thread down. So as I'm serging, because I'm listening to the TV, I can't for the life of me think, why is this thread popping up? Why is it flying up in the air like that? Well, I realized, oh, because I'm at the end of the thread, the cone. I've never gotten to that point. I've always like had something left over, so that was new for me. So in this piece, what I'm doing is I'm taking the blue flexible ruler and I am counting down 3 inches to start my quilting. I did some testing, and when I did the quilting vertically, those stitching lines, they stood out like crazy. And this is the time where I'm like, maybe this isn't tweed. I know it's a woven fabric, but maybe it's not tweed because I'm not able to hide my stitches in this fabric. So, but I did some testing and I decided, oh, well, the red and white lines of this fabric are at an angle. Maybe I can sew along the red line and I can hide my stitches in the red. And that's exactly what I did. So I'm taking the ruler, I am showing the direction of the stitching line, and I'm taking my other ruler and I'm counting down 3 inches, and that is going to be the start of the quilting line for each piece. Okay. I'm getting to the bottom, and as I go further down each piece, the quilting lines just get shorter and shorter. And that is okay. It's not like I'm doing, 20 stitching lines on each piece, because the pieces are 3 inches apart. So now I'm taking my one piece, so that's the upper sleeve, and I'm taking the other upper sleeve and I'm aligning them side by side. And so that I don't have to do the two ruler technique to find the beginning of my stitching line, I'm just taking my ruler and I'm laying it horizontal between the 2 pieces, and I am marking the beginning of the stitching line on my second piece. And I did this, so I only had to use the 2 rulers once for each of the pieces. And we're almost to the bottom, lining it up, going 1.5 to 2 inches from the edge, and I am putting my pinion. And again, I am sewing from the top of the stitching line, and then I'm going down to the bottom. And so here I drop the needle in the point, and I am painstakingly, and I mean painstakingly, because this stitching took forever. Not stitching, this quilting took forever, because if you can see the grid, if you can look at the actual texture of the fabric, you will see that the red and white lines are just interchanging. But it was possible. It was possible for me to stitch, or I keep saying stitch, to quilt these pieces. It took a long time, and I had to take some breaks because I'm using the straight stitch foot so that I can see in between the feet, so I can see where my red line, because when you if you would sew off the red line onto the white, you actually see it, see that stitch line move. And so I'm really trying to keep it straight, and I also purposely made sure that my stitching line did not go through any of the white squares, because then again you would be able to see it. But as long as I stayed on the red line, I was doing a-okay. So after this, the next thing I did was I took my piece to my pressing table and I removed the basting stitch from the middle, and I took the thread tails. I pulled them from the outside to the inside using my awl right here in my hand. Usually when you're doing tweed, you would take the fabric from the inside and pull it to the outside, but because it's not very textured like most Chanel jackets, I did not want those thread tails sticking out the front, so I just pulled them to the back and I cut them real close. And so this was a lot of time, but not as much as the actual quilting. So that's all I have for this video. I thank you for watching. If you got into this far, I appreciate your viewership, and I hope you come back for the third part. Thanks for watching.